Hello again. This is lesson 4 of Unit 2. In the previous lessons of Unit 1 and Unit 2, the first three lessons of Unit 2, again, we discussed how to write a description of bar charts and tables. In this lesson, we are going to talk about how to describe a pie chart. But as we said earlier, we follow the same, almost the same, let's say, pattern in describing graphs. So here we will take some pie charts, and this is the title of the graph: the world's spending, population, and consumption. So the world's population spending, how much money do people spend on something? And the population, the meaning, and consumption, to consume, to take something. Let's look at this graph. As you can see, we have three pie charts here, not only one. Um In this case, we might have a little bit, let's say, a long description, because we cannot cover all three pie charts in 150 words. So the number of words will be more, and maybe even more than 200. But anyway, I want actually to expose you to something like this. If you have three pie charts, or two, let's say, so you will be able to deal with them. As you can see, the three parts, the three pie charts here. The first one, the title on top is world spending. The second one on the right, world population, and the last one at the bottom, consumption of resources. Now, if we just look at these pie charts, let's start from the top left corner, which is world spending. You can see that we have transport. People spend on transport 18% of their income. People spend on housing, for example, 12%. On clothing, 6%. Food, 24%. And on other things, 40%. Let's just have an idea, and then we go to the writing part. Now, the second pie chart on the right, world population, you can see Asia, for example, 57% of the people, the population of the world, they live in Asia here, 57%, more than 50% then. Europe, we have 14% of the world's population. Americas, North America and South America, 14%. In Africa, 10%, and in other parts of the world, we have 5%. The bottom pie chart, it is about consumption of resources. USA and Europe, you can see they consume 60% of the resources that are consumed all over the world. And the rest of the world, Asia, Africa, Australia, and other parts of the world, they consume 40%. Let's go now to the description. This is the introduction. I told you, because we have three pie charts, then we might have bigger introduction, bigger body, and conclusion. So the introduction here, the three pie charts. So instead of saying the pie chart represents or discloses, etc., because here we have three, so we have to include the number of pie charts in the introductory sentence. So the three pie charts represent information about different issues. What are these issues You remember we had three pie charts, and each pie chart entitled something. The first pie chart headed world spending. So this is the first one, world spending. And this pie chart shows, you see, now he is talking about each pie chart by itself. The first pie chart, as if we are describing only one pie chart. So we have to give the information about that pie chart. So the first pie chart, headed world spending, shows percentages of the world spending on various daily living needs. You remember we talked about transportation, food, and housing and clothing. These are some of the daily living needs. The second chart, now the second pie chart, headed world population, highlights, now we use another verb, highlights what? The world's population distribution among continents. You remember we talked about Europe, Americas, both Americas, and Africa. So here the second chart headed world population highlights the world's population distribution among continents. And the third graph, which is at the bottom, headed consumption of resources, states the consumption of resources in the world. Because you remember we said that Europe and America, they consume 60%, and the rest of the world, they consume 40%. So here, the consumption all over the world. So this is the interest. Let's see the body. As you can see, we have three big or long paragraphs again, so the number of words will be more. In the first chart, and as you can see, if you look at the three paragraphs, each paragraph talks about one chart. The first chart, headed World Spending, it is clear that people spend most of their income on food. So if you go back to the pie chart, you can see that I think it is 24% of the consumption goes for food compared to other living needs. Now we want to give the example. For example, people spend 24, yes, it is 24 on food, whereas they spend 18, 12%, and 6% on. What are the things? Look at this sentence, how it is put. They spend 18%, 12%, and 6% on transportation, housing, and clothing. See, because we have three percentages, we need to have three areas of spending. So transportation or transport, housing, and clothing respectively. This word, you see, this word indicates that 18% means transport. The first percentage goes with the first sector. 12%, which is the second one here, goes with the second one, which is housing. The third one, 6%, goes with the third one from the sectors. So here, the word respectively means as if we are putting things on order. This goes with that. This percentage goes with that area of consumption. Okay? So this is good for you actually to learn such sentences. Again, let me repeat the example. For example, people spend 24% on food, whereas they spend 18%, 12%, and 6% on transport, housing, and clothing, respectively. All right? Now, moving to the second pie chart. In the second chart, entitled World Population, it is not surprising to find that the population of Asia has the highest percentage. You remember when we talked about the pie chart while discussing the pie chart, we said that in Asia we have around 57%, which is more than 50%. So here, the population of Asia has the highest percentage. Now we want to give a detailed example. For instance, 50%, 57% of the people live in Asia. Another thing to notice, this is another idea again about the second pie chart. Another thing to notice is that Europe and the Americas rank second in terms of population. And again, you remember we talked about, we said that Europe, the percentage there is 14%, and the same percentage for Americas, both Americas. So they rank second in terms of population. Now, details, we want to give example. For example, they account for just under 30 now, because we talked about Europe and Americas together, 14% plus 14%, it is 28, which means that it is just under, you see, just under 30%, which means 28 here. So just under 30% of the total, whilst only 10% of the people live in Africa. So these phrases actually, they help you if you learn how to use them. Now talking about the third pie chart. The third chart reveals that the USA and Europe consume a huge percentage of the world's resources. You remember again we stopped there and we said that the USA and Europe, they consume 60% compared to the rest of the world. So here the USA and Europe consume a huge percentage of the world's resources. Details, for instance, they consume 60% of the world's resources compared with 40% for the rest of the world. Now, let's see the conclusion. To sum up, even though the Americas and Europe are less populated than Asia, you remember we said that Asia has 50% of the world's population, but America and the Americas and Europe, 28%. Here he mentions this. He says, even though the Americas and Europe are less populated than Asia, still the major expenditure and consumption figures are the highest for these two continents. But when it comes to the consumption of resources, to they expend or spending money on certain fields of living things, of life, sorry, the people of America and Europe, they spend more, they consume more of the resources. And if you look at the number of words here at the bottom, you can see that it is more than 150 words. But maybe you have noticed that when describing graphs, the same pattern is used when we describe the bar chart, the table, and here the pie charts. It's almost the same. So it's good for you to learn how to, let's say, describe. You have to do small changes using a certain language.